Hey people. I today was a day, it was really interesting. I had a very similar piece of advice or sort of the feedback that I gave to at least two of my students was the same. And it was also, I also had a lesson today. I also took a lesson with Madeline. And what she kind of gave me was the same as I had been saying to my students. And it sounds kind of obvious, but it's actually this, it came out first in one of my early lessons of the day. And what I observed was I had a student playing a piece, and there was a kind of a way in which I could tell that the music was taking on a form of authority over her own sense of ease and peace and just natural grounded availability, whatever we want to call it, just like our center, keeping her, it was taking her off center in the sense of, when we sit down at the piano, it's totally possible to sit at the piano and be perfectly grounded, perfectly in our center. Our core is strong, our back is naturally erect, our arms and shoulders, everything is relaxed, everything is in alignment. And it's totally possible to play from there. What we often do is the music, the difficulty of the music, anything that we don't know, we will tend to give up that center in an effort to get that thing right, in an effort to make that happen, to either execute the passage or to understand the passage. We give up our center and we lean in and we try to get it right. It's so universal. It's such a universal tendency, but it's also the exact opposite of what we want to do, because it's like we take our own center and we subordinate ourselves to some sort of external standard. The composer, in the case of classical music, we subordinate ourselves to the composer. We give up our center in this effort to either do justice to the composer or to be good enough to be playing this music or whatever it is. And a lot of times that thought isn't even conscious. Like that kind of that imperative that we've given ourselves doesn't even have to be a conscious thought. Usually it isn't. It's almost like that conscious thought has become a physical habit, and now we're physically trying to be good enough. Our body is trying to be good enough. And even when our mind, even as we start to do work and we start to give ourselves the alternate imperative of claim our power, stay in our center, as Madeline says, sit like a king or a queen, never give up our center. That we can consciously be trying to never give up our center, but our body has often programmed a physicalized version of giving that up, a physicalized version of subordinating ourselves to something else, to some authority, some good enoughness. Half the time it's, patterns from childhood, deep imprints from our life. And and it's just becoming, so like so then after I had my lesson with my student, where that was really the only, like, as I was watching her, I was like, this is the only thing I have to say today. This is it. This is the key. If we can get you to say, my state of ease and joy and just physical comfort is my priority, is number one priority, and all musical concerns are secondary, it's going to solve 90% of the problems, because it's going to erase that tension that's creating this weird mixture of like intellectual, emotional, and physical tension. So then I had my lesson, and for all intents and purposes, I was kind of doing the same thing with the piece I was working on. I was just, it was so like, I got the instructions several times from Madeline today. Try that again and watch your posture. And it would just be a matter of, I would have just leaned in, like, not very far, but just enough that my structure had started to give. I physically gave away my integrity just a little bit, because I'm trying to play the etude. It's Chopin etude number 1. It's a piece that has some technical challenges to it. I give up my structure, and all of a sudden it's like I'm dead in the water. So she kept saying, try that again and focus on your posture. And the thing that really, I really unlocked a new level today, and Madeline was very affirming. She was like, that was a huge step. When I just sat, she talked me through a kind of postural, physical check-in, all the way from pelvis, hips, up through the whole spine, shoulders, neck, arms, chest, upper arms, elbows and forearms, wrists, hands. She kind of gave me this checklist, talked me through all these different parts of my body, and then said, okay, now don't even think about making music, just feel that sense of centeredness as you play physically. And I started the etude, and it was like, I started really slow, and little by little it got faster and faster and faster. It didn't get up to tempo by the end, but it was starting to flow. I was starting to see, like, oh, yeah, the piece is just playing itself. Like, my body, if I can just stay here, the piece does itself. And then things that aren't doing themselves yet, I can go in and look at. I can go in and investigate what's going on. And but never giving up that space. Never giving up that space of ease. And then I had after my lesson, I had another student who essentially this issue was the same. It was a matter of staying in that space. And of course, the thing that happens when we do that, if we say our state of ease, our comfort, our physical and psychic alignment is the number one priority, I'm not going to allow myself to physically do the thing that gives up my center. I'm not going to allow myself to physically manifest or mentally manifest that tension that comes from the not good enoughness, or that comes from the striving, the reaching. Well, now our body's an open channel. Our emotions are open, and our body can feel the feeling that caused that physical giving up of the integrity. So the feeling in us that makes us feel not good enough, or that makes us try to get it right, that emotional feeling, there's always a kind of emotional component underneath that type of tension. We release that physical side, and all of a sudden we feel the emotional side. It shows up. And now we're dealing with that. Now we're sitting with that. Now we get to experience that sensation and that emotion. And that's kind of what happened to me on my lesson. It's also what happened to my student on her lesson. It was like there was a wave coming up and through. And, you know, what sort of showed up for me, I guess, or what I took from that is just how deep this work can be, just how powerful this work can be when we sort of, we know that, and we decide this is number one. My number one priority is this space, this ease, this alignment. No musical consideration is more important than that. So now I delve into my musical considerations from that place. And as I hit little places where I have the impulse to give up my integrity and I don't, it's like emotion starts powering through. It's really remarkable. It's really remarkable. It's, you know, it takes me right back to the thing I'm going on and on about these days, which is this understanding of the creative process as a spiritual practice. It's like that creative working surface of our creative craft is an access point to all of that. If we approach it in that way, if we approach it from the point of view of integrity. I want to do a whole other post right now on what Chogyam Trungpa says about meditation and what he says about the way that the body opens in meditation and what that's about, and then the kind of there's an inherent sadness in that posture because it's connected. It feels everything. But for today, this is what showed up for me today. What showed up today was just that encouraging ease and encouraging that alignment made space to feel. And it's almost like that's the mechanics of using a creative process as a spiritual practice. You could do this as a writer, you know, centering, grounding, being in that space of ease, writing from there, not allowing contraction to lock things up. You could do this as an athlete. You could do this as a painter. You could do, I mean, there's almost no domain you couldn't apply this to. But particularly in creative work, we're going to have both the opportunity to ground and align and the opportunity to sort of test that alignment and see it and challenge it and then retain it. Feel what it provokes when that happens. So that's what I got today. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.